Could be further arrests. Currently 6 people arrested, including, as well as the former president of the General Assembly, one of the most important offices here at the United Nations, a Chinese billionaire property developer who's alleged was giving this money to the former president of the General Assembly in return for him making official visits to properties and property schemes that the billionaire owned. I can tell you, David, there's real shock at some of the details of the allegations that were read out earlier on by the US attorney.
First, they paid him money, lots of it. From 2011 to 2014, they allegedly transferred over $1 million in cash and in wire transfers to Ash's bank accounts in New York, often in installments of up to $200,000 or $300,000 at a time. As alleged, Ash spent this cash lavishly on himself and on his family. $59,000 on a single order of custom-tailored suits, $54,000 for a pair of Rolex watches, and $40,000 to lease a new BMW. But Ash took more than just cash. Sometimes he got paid in other ways. He also allegedly had the bribers pay for a luxury first-class vacation for himself and his family, having them pay for the hotel in New Orleans at over $850 a night. He even asked them to pay a contractor directly to build a $30,000 private basketball court at his Dobbs Ferry home.
It's a very long list, James, and very often when these sort of things are going around, you get an inkling that something untoward is underway. Did anybody have a clue that this was going to happen?
I haven't spoken to anyone who says they got any sort of warning at all or heard any rumours at all. In fact, Mr. Ash was here in the United Nations last week. I saw him here while world leaders were gathering for the UN General Assembly. Then he was being treated as a dignitary. Now he finds himself behind bars. This is a man who was previously the ambassador of his country, Antigua, here in the United Nations. Let me give you a clue as to his reputation here before these allegations. When he first got the job as President of the General Assembly, the then US Ambassador Susan Rice put out a press release. She said he was a true veteran of the UN, and she said we could not be in better hands.
True veteran in so many other ways as well, it would appear, or possibly. James, thank you very much indeed. James Bays of the United Nations. NATO's rejected Russia's explanation for why its combat jets went into Turkish airspace. Russia says the incident was simply a mistake. The NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg says, in his words, it doesn't look like an accident. The Russian raids in Syria are being staged from a base in Latakia, that's in the west of Syria, on the coast down there. As many as 50 military jets and helicopters moved in. The latest Russian airstrikes hit ISIL targets in the city of Palmyra, according to Syrian state TV and a monitoring group, but the Russians say that's rubbish. Russian raids since the bombing campaign began on September the 30th have largely centred on areas where armed groups fighting the Assad regime are based, not ISIL. Well, compare this to US raids from September the 25th, which mainly centred on locations known to be ISIL strongholds, either up there in the northwest or further north and east of the country. From Moscow, Al Jazeera's Rory Challens.
Russian bombs fall on Syria once more. 15 sorties were flown on Monday. According to the Defence Ministry, 10 airstrikes were carried out. On the ground, Syrians have been filming and uploading footage they say shows the explosive work of Russia's Air Force. And the diplomatic fireworks are continuing too. NATO's Secretary-General clearly doubts Russia's account of an incursion into Turkish airspace at the weekend as a fleeting mistake caused by bad weather.
I will not speculate on the motives. I will just reiterate or restate that this is a serious violation of Turkish airspace. It should not happen again.
The Turkish president, on a visit to NATO's home city of Brussels, also hit out at Russia's Syrian campaign.
Rusya bunlardan bir tanesidir.
Russia is still there. Russia at the moment is carrying out operations in Syria and it is trying to create an airbase in Syria. And at the same time, they violate our airspace. We cannot tolerate this kind of thing. NATO has taken a very tough line against this and I am convinced that it will continue to do so. Any aggression against Turkey is an aggression against NATO.
Moscow says it's happy to work with Turkey to prevent any misunderstandings in Syria. But despite communication last week between Russian and US militaries aimed at avoiding a mishap, Washington still feels Moscow is keeping it in the dark about its operations. Nonsense, says Russia's foreign ministry at a Tuesday press conference at which she criticised the international media for an anti-Russian reporting campaign. Spokesperson Maria Zakharova also told Washington all it has to do is pick up the phone.
Всегда можно взять трубку и проверить.
They can always call us and check everything in order to allay their concerns and then announce accurate and clear assessment in public. If even after these conversations, which can take place at any moment at the American side's request, you still have any concerns, you may then speak about them. But first, you should check this with us.
Despite both Russia and the US-led coalition insisting their bombing campaigns are targeting ISIL, the prospect of anything more than the merest of cooperation looks slim. Moscow says that the coalition's campaign is illegal under international law because it wasn't requested by the Syrian government. The coalition says that Russian planes are there to prop up a brutal dictator. Despite NATO warnings of a significant Russian military build-up in Syria, Moscow is still ruling out any sort of boots-on-the-ground mission. For the moment, it says, it's content to fight the war from the skies. Rory Challens, Al Jazeera, Moscow.
Bangladesh has apparently increased security for foreigners in response to the killing of an Italian aid worker and a Japanese farmer. The government and foreign diplomats have been meeting to talk about the deaths which are being blamed on ISIL, particularly the one involving the Italian citizen. The group claimed to have killed the Japanese man in a gun attack on Sunday. Let's hear more from Al Jazeera's Mahasata, who's in the Bangladeshi capital, Dhaka.
Here in this compound, the Bangladesh government briefed the diplomatic community about the security measures it's taking in the wake of the murders of 2 foreign nationals this past week. These murders have had foreigners here spooked, especially because of reports that the Islamic State is claiming responsibility for these attacks. However, the Bangladesh government has downplayed these suggestions after the briefing. They've said that there's no evidence to support that the Islamic State is linked to these attacks, despite the fact that police have, after the second murder, arrested 3 people for distributing Islamic State propaganda in North Bangladesh. In terms of security measures, very little new was mentioned after this briefing. There is more police presence in the diplomatic areas, and the British High Commissioner, after the briefing, said that he is satisfied with the safety measures that the government is taking in the diplomatic enclave and in the rest of the country. However, there's not much that's been said in terms of perhaps the most important thing, which is the progress being made in finding those responsible for the 2 murders that have taken place already.
You're watching the Al Jazeera News. Do stay with us. Coming up after this short break, the Brazilian oil company Petrobras announces $11 billion of cuts as it reels from a giant corruption scandal. We take a look at who really benefits from the signing of the world's biggest free trade deal. And Hong Kong's Football Association punished after its fans booed the national anthem. We've got Robin with that and the rest of the sport.
Hello, the 5-day heat wave is over, almost, but it's on its way through. Look at this thing here, this streak of cloud is a cold front out of the bite, so the temperatures you've been experiencing in Adelaide have just gone, and it's that quick. This is the list. We just start from Saturday, 33, 35, 35, 20. That's in Adelaide. Well, Melbourne got away with 36, but the cold front's gone through now. Melbourne's turn tomorrow. 16 degrees, I think, so that'll be a huge drop. You might get up to 20. It might be pushing it. Sydney's also cooling down. Not as it will last. Go ahead another day and then the breeze comes out of the interior again. Adelaide's up to 25, Melbourne's up to 21, so it'll warm up again. It just won't be up to the 30 mark. How's Perth doing? Ha! Beating you again, up to 26. Now, New Zealand's also a bit of a